Hi, welcome to Agile Answers. I'm Andy Brandt, and today we have a special guest, Henrik Kniberg, who is most known for his work at Spotify and bringing that model to the world. As well, because maybe people don't know that, but you are a creator or co-creator of this unique collaborative consulting company model that is CRISP model, the way you work on a daily basis. So welcome, and I would like to ask you some questions that people would typically, I think, ask you. So the first is, so people know the Spotify model. They read your papers or watch your presentations, or we told them about it.
Yeah.
We, meaning consultants and agile coaches, and they would love to have that in their company. And it's, what would you tell them? What are the prerequisites? How is that possible?
So I would ask them what exactly is it they want to have in their company. Mm-hmm. So maybe the prerequisite is really some kind of a goal, because you don't want to just take some other company's model and just apply it. Another company's model can't be a goal itself. There must be some deeper goal. Mm-hmm. So start there. But
isn't this whole thing with like scaling methodologies, for example, isn't that trying to apply what worked at other companies to new companies or to companies that want to transform themselves? Yeah. Isn't that all this?
Yeah, frameworks are like, I see them as toolkits or patterns. Uh-huh. And whenever you're going to go through some kind of a change and you want to find a suitable process for it, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. You can find something else that is close to what you need. And then apply it. But again, start with the purpose. Yeah. So, we want to apply a scaling framework. Well, why? What is our problem we want to solve? Start with that.
Yeah. The typical answer would be we want to release more often, have higher quality, more happy employees. And by the way, we're doing a large telco product and we have like 500 developers.
Yeah. So prioritize those things, first of all. Which one is number one?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part for them, usually.
Yeah.
When we talked yesterday, we discussed the other dimension of it, which is this model is possible because Spotify is able or the Spotify teams are able to release independently, which translates into the systems architecture. It has been so built to enable that.
Yeah, I see that as a chicken and egg thing. Well, first of all, Spotify isn't quite as agile as everybody likes to believe, and we have dependencies like other companies. In fact, in a sense, it's one product. So we have an implicit dependency we can't get rid of, which is that all has to come together into one product. So we can't get rid of that. But what was the original question again?
How that translates into the system architecture,
right,
because
yes.
I would like to get you talking about that part, because I think many people miss it. They concentrate on coaching and the soft stuff and time management and processes and Kanban and Scrum, but they miss the technical part.
Yeah. The chicken and egg thing, what I meant by that is, I'll give a very concrete example. At some point in time at Spotify, we were having trouble releasing our client, our desktop client, because all these teams had to be stable at the same time to release it. It was like a monolith. It became a monolith. And at that point, we had this decision to make. Are we going to manage that process? Are we going to make a really fancy release process to make sure that we have all the teams aligned at the same time to make a new release? Instead, what we did was change the architecture to enable the teams to release independently. Mm-hmm. That takes a long time, but it reduced the need for all this coordination overhead. So we invest a lot of effort into trying to make the architecture as agile as possible. And I think that's something that many companies underestimate, it doesn't come free. You have to invest effort into it, and then usually it pays off.
So that effort to make this Windows client more built on components, that was like a project that had to be funded, and it took time and everything. Yeah,
it takes time, and it's not a project, it's a continuous effort. So we have a large number of people at Spotify that their whole mission at Spotify is to continuously improve our tools, our systems, our architecture, and our kind of the core mission is find ways to get faster all the time.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think people struggle, is this notion that you can be done at some point, and the thing is there is no end state for this.
Yeah, it's continuous improvement. That's why I tend to de-emphasize the notion of projects, because the project model is a bit misleading.
I would very much agree with that.
Project end, right?
Exactly. And there is a definition for that. But so what is your take on stuff like, I don't know, Nexus or LESS or Scaled Agile Framework? What do you think of those? Because I assume you know them at least by reading?
I've been working a lot with Lego the past 2 years, and they have a safe-based approach, and I've tried to learn as much as possible about that. It's tools. I think of them as tools. It's learn as many as possible,
Okay.
but then also don't fall in love with any one, right?
Okay.
Just experiment, combine things. I think Safe has some good stuff in it, but it's just too big. So you got to take the goodie bits. Other companies that are inspired by the Spotify model, I used to be worried about that, like, oh shit, they're going to copy paste this, and there's going to be problems. But actually, yeah, most companies end up taking the stuff that fits them best, and it helps them a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, don't be embarrassed. Just go out and steal and copy whatever suits you, and then adapt it to your context.
So what are the good bits of Safe?
The fundamental good idea in Safe is get everybody together face to face to do planning.
Okay.
That's a great thing.
Well, my observation is that all other frameworks do not address the business part, and Safe at least tries to do that. That's what I would pick as a good bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that. Once I get beneath a framework and maybe talk to its authors, often business focus is quite strong. But of course, sometimes that message gets lost. But that happens even in frameworks like Scrum. People they fall in love with the ceremonies and somehow forget the customer.
Okay. So if you were to start at a new company, not Spotify, what would be your first steps? What you would usually do as a consultant?
Are we talking about like a company that's forming a new company or joining it?
No. I have a concrete example in mind, but I cannot name it. Like a big company Company X, yeah, it's a good name because they develop software for telco infrastructure.
Right.
Like the software that powers all those boxes that make up a GSM, or now it's called 3G or 4G or whatever G network.
Yeah. So what's the question then?
What would you do? You come in there and they ask you, make us as Agile as Spotify is, because that would probably the line be.
Right, yeah. I would use that as a starting point to figure out what is it they really want. So I would start interviewing people. I would interview the people who brought me in, but also interview some people around the organization to find out what is the biggest challenge.
Okay.
And quite often they'll also have a good idea for what needs to be done about it. So yeah, interview people, find out what is the current situation. Mm-hmm. And then based on those interviews, normally we would come out with some kind of a strategy like, okay, it looks like we want to get faster. That's the thing we want to do. We want to get faster. And the reason why we want to get faster is because of X. And what's stopping us from being fast? Well, silos. So maybe we need cross-functional teams. And then that's a hypothesis. So let's do an experiment with cross-functional teams and see if that makes us faster.
Okay.
So, and then I would look for someone who's willing to try that experiment, because you can't force change on people. You have to find a willing victim.
That's very interesting, because we usually, when we are called in, you would be called in to make them like Spotify. We are usually called in to implement Scrum.
Yeah.
And then when the question pops up, but why do you want Scrum?
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a bit of confusion because they didn't really think it through. Why do we need Scrum in the first place? Right. Okay. The final thing is what you talked in your talk. Your talk wasn't about organizations at all.
No.
It was about taking control of your own life.
Yeah. Although it relates to organizations as well.
Obviously. Yeah. But so how much that transformed your life when you consciously put Slack into it?
It changed quite fundamentally. Mainly now I've been able to make a bigger impact with smaller effort, and I've also have more time to do things that I want to do, more time with family, more time with personal projects. Before, I tended to just run in whatever direction people were pulling me, which was okay, but also quite stressful. So I think, although it's not a silver bullet, I sometimes fall into the stress trap like anyone else, but I feel a lot more in control now, and I feel like I can contribute a lot more effectively.
Okay. So was that mostly because you forced yourself into like a smaller time boxes for a given topic or theme that forced you to prioritize better?
Yeah, I would say that was the main catalyst, because that was a very concrete action, putting Slack into the calendar, making it clear this day is not bookable. That itself, it was a tangible activity, but that also caused a number of side effects, which were very helpful. So I would say that was the main interaction that made a big difference personally.
Right. Okay. Thanks for talking with us, and hope you learned something from this short interview. Read Henrik's books, because they are really worth it, and some of them are actually free on the internet.
Yeah. Free is good.
Thanks.
Thank you.